What if I told you that a hole in the ground could feed your family for 30 years? No feed deliveries, no supply chains, no grocery stores, just water, sunlight, and biology. In 475 BC, a Chinese statesman named Fan Li documented a system so efficient that one pond could outproduce cattle per square foot. It survived empires, it survived wars, it survived revolution. But in America, it became decoration. Tonight, we reopen the water. Welcome back to Forbidden Harvest. Part 1. The First Fish Trapped by the Flood. 3500 BC, the Yellow River does what it has always done. It rises without warning. It spills beyond its banks. It rewrites the land in a single night. Fields disappear. Villages hold their breath, and then, just as suddenly, the water retreats. When the flood recedes, something remains behind. In low-lying pockets of earth, in natural bowls carved by current and time, carp flicker beneath the surface, alive, trapped, thriving. The farmers notice, not with theory, not with ambition, but with attention. The fish are not dying. They're feeding on insects, algae, microscopic life stirred up by the flood. The water, warmed by the sun, becomes a cradle. So the farmers experiment, gently. They deepen the depression by hand. They press clay along the edges. They prevent the next rain from draining it dry. And the fish stay, not for days, for seasons. And when spring returns, they multiply. This was not domestication. No cages, no feed, no ownership. It was alignment. The land already knew how to grow protein. Humans simply stopped interrupting it. By the time of the Tang Dynasty, around 1600 BC, oracle bone inscriptions referenced something curious: fish in the garden. Archaeologists now believe these were managed household ponds, integrated directly beside millet plots and vegetable beds, not separate from agriculture, embedded within it. Village ponds became as common as grain fields, some ornamental, most practical, all productive. Water was no longer a threat. It was storage, it was insurance, it was food waiting patiently. And then something strange happened. Part 2. The ban that created perfection. In the 7th century, during the Tang Dynasty, China was organized, expanding, and confident. An imperial decree then spread across the countryside. Because the emperor's family name, Li, sounded almost identical to the word for common carp, raising or consuming carp became taboo in a culture where language held sacred weight. Whether driven by superstition, symbolism, or authority, the result was immediate. The farming of common carp, a cornerstone of rural protein, was banned across the empire. For more than 1,000 years, carp had been the quiet insurance policy of the peasantry. It reproduced easily, tolerated murky water, and converted sunlight and algae into food. Suddenly, it disappeared from ponds. Farmers faced a crisis. Protein was gone, land was scarce, and livestock required grain most families did not possess. Instead of relying on a single replacement, they studied the pond itself and noticed that different fish occupy different depths and eat different foods. They began combining species deliberately. Mud carp sifted bottom sediments, silver carp filtered algae from mid-water, grass carp grazed on surface vegetation, and bighead carp consumed zooplankton in open water. Each species occupied a distinct ecological niche, eliminating competition and waste. For the first time, a human food system mirrored a natural ecosystem. Sunlight fed algae, algae fed plankton, plankton fed fish, and fish fed families. Because every layer of the pond was used efficiently, the system stabilized itself. The imperial ban had unintentionally created a model of biological efficiency, the world's first true polyculture system, born not from abundance, but from restriction.
By the 1200s, European travelers described Chinese villages threaded with water, with ponds beside homes and fields, some producing food for generations without external feed or pasture. The ponds sustained themselves. When settlers later arrived in North America, however, they did not bring this system with them. They brought cattle. Part 3. The animal that eats the sun. Cattle production depends on a chain of inputs. Feed requires land, land requires fencing, and fencing requires labor. A pond, by contrast, relies largely on natural processes. By the 20th century, backyard ponds in the United States had become ornamental features, with koi, fountains, and decorative landscaping. The knowledge had shifted from survival to aesthetics. However, in the 1960s, researchers at Auburn University quietly tested ancient Chinese polyculture methods using small ponds of about 1,000 square feet. These systems produced up to 350 pounds of fish per year. For comparison, a quarter acre of pasture typically yields about 200 pounds of beef annually, while requiring continuous feed, veterinary care, and infrastructure. The pond needed very little input. Although the studies were published, they led to no major programs, subsidies, or changes in agricultural education. Producing significant protein in a backyard operates outside conventional agricultural systems, reducing dependence on centralized supply chains.
Part 4. The 4-part living machine. An edible pond is not fish. It is a layered organism. 1. Ducks, the biological managers. Ducks stir sediment. They fertilize water with nitrogen. They eat insects. They lay eggs. A small flock of khaki Campbells produces 280 to 340 eggs per duck per year. 3 ducks can produce nearly 1,000 eggs annually. They fertilize the pond. The pond feeds them. Closed loop. 2. Plants, the kidneys of the system. Cattails pull nitrogen. Water lilies provide shade. Hornwort oxygenates. Duckweed doubles biomass in 48 hours. Duckweed feeds ducks. Ducks fertilize water. Water feeds plants. Plants clean water. Up to 90% of nitrogen waste can be absorbed by plants in aquatic systems. The water clears itself. 3. Fish, the protein engine. Bluegill, channel catfish, tilapia where legal. Stock once, harvest forever. Leave a breeding population. By year 2, the pond begins reproducing without you. You are not farming, you are stewarding metabolism. 4. Bacteria, the invisible workers. Ammonia becomes nitrite. Nitrite becomes nitrate. Nitrate feeds plants. The nitrogen cycle stabilizes itself. Once established, you mostly observe. Part 5. The build, practical section. Location, lowest point on your land. 6 hours of sun, not full exposure all day. Size, 10 by 15 feet, 4 to 5 feet deep in the center, with shallow shelves around the edges. Cost, $400 to $600 total. EPDM liner with a 20 to 30 year lifespan. Stocking order, plants first. Wait 2 to 4 weeks. Then ducks, then fish, then patience. Part 6. Winter and resilience. Winter is where most systems fail. Gardens die, pastures sleep, and chickens slow production. But a pond does something different. In cold climates, the surface freezes, a sheet of silence forming overnight. To the untrained eye, it looks lifeless. But beneath the ice, metabolism continues. All that is required is a small opening, a fist-sized portal for gas exchange. A simple pond de-icer or even a floating aerator keeps that breathing hole alive, allowing oxygen to enter and gases to escape. Below the frozen ceiling, bluegill and channel catfish shift into a slower rhythm. Their metabolism drops, movement becomes minimal, and energy is conserved. They do not die, they wait. Water insulates. 4 feet below the surface, temperatures remain stable, often just above freezing. The pond becomes thermal memory. Tilapia are different. They are children of warm water, and when temperatures drop below 50 degrees Fahrenheit, their biology cannot adapt. In colder regions, they must be harvested before the first freeze or moved indoors. This is not failure, it is seasonal design. Ducks, meanwhile, are remarkably resilient. With a simple three-sided shelter to block wind and dry straw bedding, they continue laying through winter light. Eggs in January, ice on the pond, fish sleeping below. Nothing collapses, and the system does not panic. Because this system is older than electricity, older than refrigeration, and older than centralized supply chains. It was designed by climate itself. Winter does not break it. Winter proves it. Part 7. The Quiet Sovereignty. 10 years from now, food prices rise, supply chains tighten, and neighbors worry. You walk to your pond, cast a line, collect warm eggs, and harvest greens. No panic, no headlines, no dependence. This is not rebellion, it is memory. Fan Li understood this 2,500 years ago. The pond does not ask permission, it waits.